I am so excited to kick off today's conversation from awareness to action, fueling a culture of inclusion at Northwestern Mutual. Northwestern Mutual has been helping families and businesses achieve financial security for over 160 years. Northwestern Mutual believes in putting people first, doing the right thing, and creating a world-class culture of inclusion, which we'll hear about today. Today, I am joined by Jess and Gladys, field diversity and inclusion professionals at Northwestern Mutual, who will discuss the company's commitment to supporting and promoting D&I, including how the company has shifted from awareness and training of DE&I initiatives to a sustained culture change in the organization. So with that, I would love to go ahead and have our two fabulous panelists introduce themselves. So Jess, let's start with you. Can you please tell us who you are and what you do at Northwestern Mutual?
Hi, good to be with you all. I'm calling in from Philadelphia. I'm Jessica Choi. I have the privilege of leading the Asian segment for our Northwestern Mutual team. I also have an opportunity to provide D&I education. And all of our team members actually consult and coach our field members. So Gladys, would you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name is Gladys Manzanet. So I'm also on the Field Diversity and Inclusion team with Jess. I lead the Hispanic segment with our field force. I am also a people champion and inclusion advocate and help coach and consult our field leaders and talent.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much both for being here today. We are now going to get into our discussion questions. And again, if you do have any questions for Jess or Gladys throughout the session, please do use that Q&A feature. We will answer questions from attendees at the end. So Gladys, I'd love to hear what initially drew you to Northwestern Mutual and how long have you been with the company?
So I've been with the company 6 years. I initially started in our multicultural markets team. I'm a lifelong Milwaukee resident, so I am very aware of Northwestern Mutual and their foundation and their community engagement efforts. And for me, I've always considered Northwestern Mutual a strong corporate citizen and community steward, and I just wanted to be part of it.
Wonderful. And Jess, what about yourself?
So I did not know about Northwestern Mutual because I'm in Philadelphia, and Northwestern Mutual is known to be a quiet company. How I learned about Northwestern Mutual was volunteering in organization. I want to say of all the jobs I've had, most of those jobs and career changes was due to volunteering at like nonprofit organizations or going out for community events and things like that. And I was serving in a D&I committee for a nonprofit, and I got a chance to meet really cool people at Northwestern Mutual, like my boss, Ron Adams, and also fantastic leader in our field like Leo Tucker. And I call it like Ian Freeman, our wealth advisor in Boca Raton. He's like the biggest ally and champion. And I was like, wow, it's fantastic to be with all these great people. And then as I got to know about the company, the opportunity to really make an impact was so fantastic. So I've been here a year and a half. It like literally flew by, and we're having so much fun here.
That's so great to hear. And I'd love to hear more about this impact that you are both working on. So can you tell me a little bit about the work that you do to help create this culture of diversity and inclusion at Northwestern Mutual, and how did you first get involved with it? Jess, do you want to start with this one?
Yeah, so I like to share that I am a business person that happens to be doing D&I. And one of the things that I love about Northwestern Mutual is that you talk to any Fortune 500 companies, and we happen to be Fortune 90. We just jumped like 12 places. So D&I is a business imperative. What's unique and different about Northwestern Mutual's D&I initiative is not only is it a business imperative, it's also a leadership competency. So when I learned about our 15-year roadmap, I'm like, who does 15-year roadmap? However, when you are a 164-year-old organization, we are in year 9 of our 15-year strategy. So, it's just really good to be part of this systemic change that we are trying to influence for this very legacy organization. Gladys, anything you want to add on?
Sure. So I think what I want to add is also to understanding that during that 15 years, so we've been on this journey since maybe 2012. Some companies have been on it for much longer, but I think for us, being able to have that sustained throughout this time really gave us that foundation for when the events of last summer occurred, right? So where we hit that tipping point with George Floyd, we were primed to be able to deliver the support that our offices needed, that our home office needed in order to really respond to what that looked like, right? So for each office, so Jess and I and our other team members we service and we help support 76 network offices across the country. So you have 76 network offices with different responses, with different. So when without that foundation of being able to develop that many years ago, how do you respond to that, right? So when we started to hear that other companies were starting their implicit bias training and all that, like, we were already, moving along. Like that type of training is already we've woven into our leadership development courses and our field diversity and inclusion councils on the local level already have those trainings at their disposal to kind of share at whim, right? So I think for us, what that tells us is that the work that we do, it's been a long time coming. Thank goodness for that foundation, but also too, we're also able to respond in a very meaningful way. And I think that's what's really kind of helped propel us into the work that we've been able to do, not only this past year, but also over the course of several years and for many years to come.
That's so great to hear. And yes, it is a journey, as many companies say with their D&I. So it's great to hear that Northwestern Mutual has been working on this for years and for years to come and has that long 15-year plan. So is this type of work important to you on a personal level? Could you speak to maybe why that is? Gladys?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, so I grew up in Milwaukee, right? I mentioned that earlier. It is considered one of the most segregated cities in the country. And I also had the privilege of being able to go to school and grow up in different parts of the city. So I was able to be exposed to difference on different many levels, and understanding, and then and understanding what belonging looks like, right? But not until I dove into this work did I have the words or the concepts to be able to describe what I was experiencing. And what I was experiencing was an understanding was that marginalization exists, right? And access to financial security and business capital is not the same for everyone, right? And including my own family. So this work is important to me because I see that helping families become more financially empowered and through the expertise of our advisors, of course, provides our communities with choices and opportunities and greater access to and fulfillment of that American dream. So that's why it's so important to me.
Wonderful. And Jess, I'd love to hear why this work is important to you as well.
Yeah, so I tell people that I'm a D&I practitioner, which just means that I get to practice more. And professionally, what I get to do as I practice and being, Katie, I loved what you said. You said it's a journey. In my personal journey, I get to educate my team about learning and maybe relearning things that you may have learned through your head, your knowledge, but now through your heart. And then perhaps it's relearning something that you've learned years ago or even now, and how you get to actually unlearn some of these things that you may have inherited or thought about in the past that just does not serve you today. Personally, for me as Asian American and being an immigrant here, and I look at our Asian community, we are very family oriented. I live in a multi-generational household, and my in-laws did not have a integrated financial planners like Northwestern Mutual planners. So, for my in-laws who now has multiple chronic illnesses, and actually my mother-in-law has Alzheimer's. So because of the fact that they did not have an integrated planning, Katie, they now have the insurance is me. The insurance is the children.
Mhm.
So it is really important for me to educate our community on the importance of financial planning. And for me, again, going back personally, is how do I not inherit my children as an insurance for me? So how do I secure my financials and provide this education to my community?
Wonderful. Thank you both for sharing that. And certainly the work that you both are doing is more important than ever. This past year, or sorry, this year, the country has grappled with a wave of anti-Asian sentiment. Jess, would you be able to share with us how that has impacted your work and how are you helped driving action?
So I'll share both personally and also professionally. So when these anti-Asian sentiments came up, I went to my father-in-law and I said, Father-in-law, I know that you've, in 35 years of dry cleaners that you had, you've been at a gunpoint. And he's like, yeah, 5, 6 times. So some of these, call it a hate crime or the Asian sentiment, it's been around for a long time. It's just gotten heightened through the COVID-19 experience that we've all been going through. So for me, it was an opportunity for us to share these stories and share these stories with our community so that we can all come together and bond. The theme that we had at Northwestern Mutual for our Asian Heritage Month that we just passed in May, the theme was lifting our community, culture, and voices. Lifting our community, culture, and voices. So it's really about galvanizing our community of Asians, sharing maybe these personal stories that we may have been impacted with, and how do we educate our team. What I learned through this experience is the allyship. So many of our team members have shown on to show support, and even fairy godboss inviting us to share this story is an action that you're taking as an ally. So we've been encouraging our team to get informed, become an ally, and get involved. So one of the things that I learned from Gladys, and Gladys, I'm giving you kudos for this, is how do we give time? How do we give treasure? So open up your pocketbook, donate to these organizations that are supporting. Or if you have the talent, if you have the voice, if you're a musician, make music out of it. How do we provide talent back and get involved? Time, treasure, talent. Gladys, how did I do?
You did great. You did fantastic. Although they're not mine. They're what I borrowed from the nonprofit world, but absolutely.
Love it. Yes, the 3 T's. That's
The
so
three
great.
T's.
Yes. All right. And Gladys, turning to you, can you describe how Northwestern Mutual has shifted from awareness to action and what's driving that?
Absolutely. So I think one of the first things, whether it's Northwestern Mutual or any other company, right? So one of the first ways that you can move to action is understanding where you are in your journey, right? You discussed journey earlier, Katie. You need to formulate what equity looks like for your teams, for your offices, for your firm. For instance, is it recruiting more women or people of color if you're a predominantly white male industry or office, right? Is it recruiting more women or developing more women and making sure that they're in leadership roles so they provide that type of representation? Like decide what it is that you want to achieve in order to move towards that action. And then what we've come to understand and know and what we've inherently adopted is this idea of what doesn't get measured doesn't get done. But you have to know what you want to measure, right? So you have to make sure that you have that and take a good hard look at your teams and your offices and your firm and what it is that you want to achieve. We have an office D&I assessment tool that we use in our system. So for our field force, we have a myriad of quantitative measures that we've decided on, that we've assessed over many years of doing this work. And then we have a set of qualitative measures that we can kind of couple. So the quantitative would be like recruitment and retention numbers, leadership pipeline, and then the qualitative measures could be your culture index scores, your active plan for, recruiting women and people of color, whether they're utilizing the tools that we've created for them, or attending summits or conferences that you've set up in order to create this greater awareness, like being able to do that. So we've created these systems, and this is fresh in my mind because I literally just did this with one of my managing partners here locally, and he was just blown away by the amount of information that we were measuring. Because when you think about D&I, you think about D&I being like something like, head and heart and, the right thing to do. But when you put measures to them and you're able to show a network office that we are literally, we're documenting all these different things, he was just blown away. And it was just being able to kind of show him how the sausage is made when we were able to show that to him. What we do is we consult and coach to these areas of opportunity. So this assessment will identify those areas that you need to work on. And then we work with what we call performance teams that work directly with our network offices in order to help create, stretch goals for them, create action plans to achieve them, and then hold them accountable to the goals that they've set for themselves. So we're able to do that. So that's how we move from, just basic awareness to driving action. For our teams, we've discovered that we have, we have 5 categories. One is leadership pipeline, production measures, and then we have office culture. And through those, we've been able to measure that. Even by just measuring it over this past year, we've seen a 20% jump in just those overall scores. And that is unprecedented for a company. I think the results that we've also seen in the company is also the growth in our field force and our field talent and the diversity in our field talent. So for instance, we've seen a 91% growth rate in the number of Black and African American advisors in our system, 74% growth with Hispanic advisors, 63% with women. So those kinds of numbers probably would not have been, I think, achieved without having very measured goals and real tactics in order to achieve those goals over time.
Definitely. I think having goals is definitely a big part of driving that change, and you need that to be able to measure everything that you're doing.
Exactly.
So that's great to hear, and congratulations on the growth of your diversity demographics as well. So I'd love to hear more examples of what's really driving that transformation, Gladys.
Sure. So there's several things. So what I share with you is some of the tactics and results that just our team alone has been personally driving from our field force. But our company overall as an enterprise has been really working hard on making sure that the sustained action is felt throughout the system, not just for our field force, right? So first, we are accelerating our efforts with regard to sustained action for racial equity. So what that means is, so we understand that our business is for generations to come, right? So our approach to fighting racism is both as equally strategic and long-term as that. This past year, our CEO is chairing a task force just on this model, where we have 4 pillars and 60 people made up of our home office and field experts in the field, or I should say, to really kind of work on this, to really create a world-class talent, ensuring financial inclusion, and really having the right marketplace impact. Just this past year, we took the bold step of investing $20 million in startup businesses with Black and African American founders to elevate our culture and build that momentum. And that's just this past year. Second, we are also focused as a company on making sure that women want to join Northwestern Mutual, they want to stay with Northwestern Mutual, and they want to grow as employees, financial representatives, and clients. For us, that's super important. We have an initiative that's really kind of enterprise-wide in order to make sure that women of all races and ethnicities are represented in financial services. We're taking bold steps to recruit women, develop a comprehensive approach to developing these women, and being able to ensure that they have opportunities to advance at all levels of our organization. So a couple of commitments that we made in this space is including a $20 million investment in startup companies founded by women. We also launched our first ever Women's Field Association, as well as an inaugural Women in Tech conference. And again, these are just initiatives this past year. Okay, and then third, there's a lot that I could talk about, but okay, the last one is we're also committed to supporting and advancing inclusivity in our communities, right? So for instance, here locally in Milwaukee, we've had a strong foundation that has really been a force over the last 30 years in really advancing the quality of life of everyone in our communities, but especially in underrepresented communities and underserved communities. So just this past year alone, we invested $28 million to help underserved neighborhoods with housing support, with access to youth and family resources and food programs just this past year. And now we also have more announcements that I'll let the company announce over later on in this year. But again, this is not done, right? So we have very real programming and real tactics and real initiatives to move the needle in various realms. And I think this is a real impact that we're looking to see in order to truly transform not only our industry, but the communities that we serve.
That's incredible, and loved hearing those examples. I'm sure you can go on, and we'd love to hear them as well. It is very evident that Northwestern Mutual is committed to driving change, both in the organization and in the community. So, so wonderful to hear that. So my next question for you both, what sets Northwestern Mutual apart when it comes to advancing women of color in the workplace, particularly into leadership roles? Jess, do you want to start with this one?
Our Advancing Women platform, it's been such a dedicated top-down initiative. Our commercial officer to just from recruiting women to developing women, everything that Gladys just talked about has been just absolutely incredible. Gladys, do you want to share some stats?
Absolutely. So we've set some really bold goals. Also, too, I want to share that we're not done yet. We're not experts in this yet, but we're definitely making some. We're setting our goals and setting out to achieve them. Women, as you know, we have 83%. They're in charge of 83% of all consumption and of the estimated $6.4 trillion of buying power and influence in this country, right? For us, we found that there are three trends that lead to more women and women of color in particular finding place in space within these offices and seeing themselves as successful leaders here at Northwestern Mutual. And I'm going to focus on our field force. Joe St. John from our team, has this really great system of developing that and helping our network offices do this. And we focus on the three R's, right? So all the acronyms, right? Like we've got the T's and now we're going with the R's. So the three R's are relationships, rigidity, and responsibility. So the first, relationships. She talks about them. She says that women have to have positive relationships with their leaders, regardless of their gender, so they can stay and grow. So this means that we are helping to equip our male leaders and our women leaders with the tools that they need to help develop and sustain such positive working relationships with the women women and female talent overall. When we talk about rigidity. So there are industries built on systems that work, and we have those in our case. I mean, we have, a system that has worked for decades, right? But what we understand is sometimes that's not always so conducive to women. So what we allow now is being able, or what we encourage, I should say, is this a space for women to master the system that we have, help them hack it for themselves, and then encourage them and their leaders to coach to in development to those hacks, right? So those are how we can kind of build into just this the creativity that you need in order to help develop and retain women. And then finally, responsibility. So we found that while it's everyone's job to ensure that you have a great culture, like in your office and in your corporate setting, et cetera, we need to assign someone to really make sure that you're achieving your goals and setting out to whether it's attracting great talent, developing that talent, retaining women and women leaders, and continuously train your leaders and being able to help develop them. So those are what we're seeing as being able to really help women thrive, especially when we're looking at just talent overall, but also in leadership roles too. So those three R's are what we see, kind of what we're seeing as trends and how we're really trying to tackle those trends to really turn the tide on that.
Love it. 3 T's and the 3 R's.
Yeah, there you go.
Definitely have a good takeaway from today. So hearing from you both, it's very evident that the company has a strong commitment to supporting and promoting D&I. But for people out there who are struggling to get D&I support from their employers, what advice do you have for them? Jess, you want to take this one?
hold on.
Oh, okay.
Uh-oh.
Gladys, do you
I
want
am going to pull out my D&I
Woohoo!
box here, right? And I love, like, yeah, we come with props here. Fairy Godboss
Love
had
it.
props. We have props.
Yeah, props.
Perfect.
It could be a top-down initiative. It could also be a grassroots bottoms-up initiative. And I believe that everyone has unique ability to make a difference. So fortunately for Northwestern Mutual, we have John Shlifsky, who just won National Diversity Council CEO of the Year Award. Very fortunate for us that he is personally leading SARE initiatives, Sustained Action for Racial Equity. So for us, it's a top-down. But no one is stopping us to flip that upside down and have the grassroots approach. So if you are struggling to get the support of your team, you have a unique voice to make a difference. I think one of the things that Gladys and I talk about quite a bit is that as D&I practitioners, we seem like we're always talking to the choir and not to the congregation. Because the people that may know these concepts, so language or bias or what have you, like, oh, I connect with you, I get you. But what about the congregation? So one of the things that I'm learning from Gladys is how do you communicate so you're actually heard? People are actually understanding and listening to you and being heard. And one of the models that we share, it's how we provide reaction to difference. And in that reaction to difference, there is a very, very secret sauce. That secret sauce is a pause. And I'm demonstrating right now. You guys are like, what's happening here, right? It gives an opportunity for you to think. And one of the quotes that I really, really love is from Viktor Frankl. And it says, between stimulus and response, there is space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. So those of you, I know I've been there. I haven't had D&I in my title for 20 years, maybe 7, I don't know, 10. I've been a D&I practitioner for over 20 years. Because what I believe in and how I want to contribute to community and society. So that pause and making sure that people hear you is something that we are practicing here.
That's great. And that's something that we all should practice just in everyday life as well. Gladys, what advice would you have for women who are struggling to find support in D&I in their companies?
So what I would say is very much, Jess was able to really kind of hit the nail on head on that is make sure that you're heard, right? So I think one of the things that we do as we start to awaken to this new reality, they call it, whether it's woke culture or whatever, I mean, for us, whatever label you put on it, like once we have that understanding, we struggle with how we can make ourselves heard, right? And so what I would always challenge, and this is something that I think Jess and our team do, is be able to understand, like, how can you be heard? How can you speak in a way where you're developing this common ground and understanding so that you can really drive some change? You can't drive change if you're shaming people, right? No one learns through shame, right? We learned that from Brene Brown. We have to find a way to be able to find a way to communicate with someone so that we're heard. And so I think, whether that's, for some people it's metrics. Let's show the business case for what you need to do. For some people, it's, tugging at the heartstrings and sharing your own personal story. Whatever that person needs in order for them to hear you, you need to cultivate that for yourself. And I would definitely tap into what Jess said and being able to use that pause, because sometimes, we get really excitable, and that goes for anybody, whether you're man, woman, person of color or not. Sometimes we get a little excited when things trigger us. And I think taking that pause to really understand, like, what's going on with you, what that other person needs in order to be heard. If you take that time, I think you really be able to see some real movement in that space.
Definitely. Thank you both for sharing that advice. I love that. And I think it is so important for everyone to be sharing their own thoughts and using their voices. And I love that idea of taking a pause. It's a great tip for sure. And this is my last question for you all before we open it up to the audience Q&A. So I want to remind everyone, if you do have questions for Gladys and Jess, please drop them in the Q&A and we will answer them live in just a little bit. So what advice do you both have for working women in general? What advice would you want to give to our audience today? Gladys, do you want to go ahead and start?
Yeah, so I would say, so my piece of advice would be like find your people, right? And so you know, whether it's your partner, a close set of friends, your colleagues, like find your people. I think what was so hard about the pandemic was not being able to connect, right? And not being able to visit your people regularly. And so you have to be creative in being able to do that. So I was very fortunate to have a set of comadres, right? So this is my girl group that I go to that are better than therapy, right? And then also a phenomenal team at Northwestern Mutual that really helped me get through. And Jess knows this for sure. We've had many late night conversations about this. Is that severe anxiety that I was experiencing. I also suffered some depression due to the death of a loved one during the pandemic, and so without my people, I don't know if we would have been able to achieve the type of success that we've had over the past year. So my advice to working women is, find and lean on your people as much as you can.
Great advice. And Jess, what about yourself?
I love Gladys. I just have to. So what's really
I love
funny,
your relationship.
right, Katie? So what's really funny, it was like really weird because, I'm relatively new to Northwestern Mutual. I was here 3 months before the pandemic struck. So like one of my team members, I love her to death, Joe St. John that we mentioned. I've actually never met her because we've formed this relationship via Zoom. And as we hang up our like meetings, we're like, love you, love you. I'm like, is that a little weird at a Fortune 90 organization? But we really do love each other. And, she said, lean on, right? So I want to build off of that is that for many, many years, look at me, like I show up in blazers, I'm wearing the lapel, right? This is like corporate, just leaning in all the time. Sheryl Sandberg, lean in, lean in, lean in. And then because of I have 4 children, 2 happens to be under the age of 14, 2 happens to be over the age of 76 because I am caring for my in-laws, right? So what I had to learn is how do I lean out and say what I need? And Gladys just shared her personal story. So sometimes I'll be like, Gladys, I'm going through this. Can you help me out? So lean out. And most importantly, is to lean on. She talked about the tribe. So I lean on her all the time. Gladys, like, I can't get this done. Can you help me out? So our team operates the way about we lean in. You heard all the metrics that Gladys just talked about. Lean in, lean out, and lean on. And that's the model that we operate in.
I love what you both said about finding your tribe, finding your people. It's so important. And I just love seeing the relationship between you both and seeing women supporting women. It's so important. So great to see. So now I want to open it up to some questions from the audience. We have a few here. I'm going to read them out. So thank you both for sharing your personal stories. It's so great seeing what you're doing at Northwestern Mutual. Like other companies, there are many things that are done at the corporate level. How do you encourage and ensure that the leadership team embody being inclusive? And do you have any specific plans for amplifying the message to management? Do either of you want to take this one first?
You want to start, Jess?
So I'm going to bring my prop back out. Because it could be a top-down initiative. It could be a bottoms-up initiative. Where we struggle is the managers. We're the bottlenecks here. So what do we do and how do we move the middle is where Gladys and I are focused on. Our team, the D&I practitioners, are really focused on. So if you are a leader on this audience, I ask you, how are you learning? How are you educating yourself and bringing in the concept so that you can bring it back to the management team? meaning senior leadership, as a leader? And what are you doing to support your team? So learning is an action, and that's an action that you can take. And being comfortable being uncomfortable. So it may be serving in an organization or community that you're not affiliated with. And one of the things that I'm practicing and learning about is we have many FRs that are from Muslim faith, and I grew up as Christian, so I don't know the Muslim faith. So I'm learning from my teammates and educating myself, and Fairy Godboss has such great resources. So leveraging the resources that are available and being part of this group here could be some of the specific actions that you can take. Learning is action. Gladys, what I miss?
No, I think you covered it. The other thing that I would do though is I would also normalize conversations like this. Normalize uncomfortable conversations. Normalize, conversations that where you can discuss different topics, whatever they may be, whether they fall in the D&I space or other spaces. I think when you have that normalization of those types of conversations, no matter what it is, you can have these kinds of conversations and you can all grow from them, right? I think through those conversations, you can also start to develop what do goals look like for you and your office, your system, your team, in order to advance whatever it is you want to advance. I think having those conversations will make certain things bubble up to the top as things that you might need to address. Then you could start to formulate your plan on how to attack them, right? So I think being able to do that and normalize those conversations, I think would be one thing that I would also add to what Jess just mentioned. So creatively,
Okay.
the little
Love
props.
Love the props. Love the props. Love the courageous conversations. Yes, great answers from you both. So we have some people asking, what advice would you give to someone who's looking to enter a DE&I position at a company, or someone that is just starting these efforts? What advice would you give to them? And specifically, how do you think that they can advance into a D&I role?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I can offer up a little bit, and then Jess, I'll toss it over to you. So one of the things that so for me, I've only had the title. Jess had talked about how she had the title only for a short time. Same here. I've only been a D&I professional officially for the last year and a half. But the work that I've been doing has been focused on making sure that we're advancing marginalized communities, wherever they go, right? So in one realm, it was multicultural marketing. In another realm, it was, working in the community and community engagement and working with government agencies. So that's my path. What I would do is I would definitely look at your past experiences and determine what experiences make you best equipped to become a DEI professional, right? So definitely tapping into that and making sure that you're also presenting yourself as a D&I professional with this experience, even if that title hasn't been in a role that you've had officially. Okay, so that would be the first thing, because otherwise your resume is going to get kicked out and it's not going to fly, right? It's just not going to fly. So that would be the first, I think, bit of advice that I would give is definitely kind of comb through your experience and pull out what DEI looks like and how it's positioned in certain spaces, and then determining how you can provide value to that organization, whatever their role entails. So definitely do that. The second thing I would do is also, I was talking about like find your people. Immerse yourself with other DEI professionals. Start listening and watching and reading all the things DEI. It's really like popular right now, but there are some really amazing practitioners that have been doing this for 30 plus years. They've got some great, information out there. Yaba Blay is one that I love when, talking about colorism and just what that space looks like. Just tap into these amazing leaders that have been doing this for so long. That have really mastered not only how you discuss this, how you can be heard, but also providing all those amazing, the clarity that you would need in order to be able to help discuss and share this information. When you can speak with clarity on the topic of DEI, you are heard and people pay attention. If you can demonstrate that to a potential employer, that advances your opportunity and increases your chances of getting hired. So, Jess, what would you add?
Yeah. So one, I think Gladys just demonstrated all those things about transferable skills. right? And I share that I am a business professional that happens to be doing diversity.
Mm-hmm.
So how I'm programmed as an operator is that I look at everything, projects, process, with the income statement. How is this going to impact my top line? How is this going to impact my bottom line margin? And what am I going to do to squeeze the middle, like hell, squeeze the hell out of the middle of the piano? Can I say hell on this webinar? I might get edited. um, it's really about like, how are we creating effectiveness and how are we creating efficiency? That transferable skill have got me into all these other things, right? And how I got to DNI is really through volunteerism. It was me saying, you know what, like I'm a Penn State grad. I love to go and recruit. Can I help you? Because representation matters. And when people, students see someone like a Jess Choi, oh, there's an Asian woman. Oh, maybe there's an opportunity for me there. And I always tell people like, I can't speak English. I can't speak, Korean. I speak Konglish. When I'm speaking at Ferry Gospel, it's like, if Jess Choi can be on the panel, I can be on the panel, right? So know your transferable skills as to what Gladys just talked about. I was going to talk about network. Gladys already talked about it. So fantastic. Utilize your network.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know that when you go and apply online with all these applicant tracking system, like it's a filtering system? So you want to get to your recruiter that's managing that requisition and the hiring manager. Those are the two people that you want to get to if you want the job. So utilize your network. If you want to come and work at Northwestern Mutual, guess what? You got two people right here. Link in with us, share, your resume. We will be your advocates. So look at those connections that you have on LinkedIn and your network. And then the third thing is that competence will bring you confidence. Competence will bring you confidence. And Gladys just talked about all these different resources that are available. Brene Brown has two podcasts, Daring to Lead and then also the Unlocking Us. Both, I think they are like DNI practitioner, such great content. So you can do that. You can just go to YouTube, you can Google. Knowledge is not the challenge here. It's the application of knowledge. So Cornell has a fantastic, excellent certificate on diversity and inclusion. And literally, if you Google, right, just Google it, right? You can just insert in whatever F word that you want to choose, right? Just literally look at and Google many of the certificate. There's community colleges that have DNI certificates that are available, because when you have competence, your confidence level will rise, to Gladys's point. So when you go in to make an impact in that organization, they're going to want to hear you.
I'll also add this too. We talked specifically about like DEI roles, right? You don't need to be in a DEI role in order to advance DEI. And make this very clear, because the reason why DEI is moving at Northwestern Mutual is not because of our small team and because of the small team at the home office. It's moving and advancing because our performance teams and our career distribution system has recognized this as an imperative, and they're moving it forward. Our actuaries are taking DEI, seriously, and they're, looking at, so it's everyone's job. So even if you're not in a DEI role right now and you want to make an impact, you can infuse these things into your goals. You can infuse DEI into what it is that you want to advance. If you're a manager or a leader, or you're an aspiring manager or leader, you can make advances this way by being able to do that. Encourage your teams and your corporate systems to start to measure what DEI impact looks like. You can still do this and not have the formal role. And so I want to make that clear as well.
For sure. And thank you for mentioning that, Gladys. I love what you said, that we can all help advance D&I in our own ways. And thank you both for sharing all of those resources. I know our attendees will definitely be looking all of those up and Googling all of the things. So great. Another question here from an attendee: is there anything that your team is doing specifically to find diverse talent in the market?
So I'll take that. Yeah. So, one of the things that we're doing is like partnering with organizations like Fairy Godboss. I mean, this is such a great, intimate community. So opportunities like here, and thank you for listening. Thank you for being here live. This is exactly what we're doing. The other organizations that we're partnering with is Jobwell. So sourcing more diverse talent to come to our application process. We are also working very closely with HBCUs, fantastic talent that are out there in HBCUs. And one of the unique innovation that I'd like to share with you is because we are a Milwaukee-based headquartered organization, every year our innovation center provides this program called Reverse Pitch Milwaukee. So we actually put out a agenda and say, hey, this is the problem that we're trying to solve. And the problem that we were trying to solve was, how do we invite more diverse talent to this fantastic organization, both in the home office, this beautiful tower that beats behind me, or in the field. And the organization that actually won Reverse Pitch Milwaukee this year is an organization called Ease Inc. And they are an organization that's helping us pull more diverse talent to this fantastic career as a financial planner.
Great, Gladys. Is there anything you'd like to add to that?
No, I think it just pretty much covered it. I mean, I think one of the things that we're doing is we're encouraging all of the teams here at the home office to look at it differently. We've got an amazing home office D&I team that is really helping to work with the talent acquisition team to be able to source the right talent. But we're also working with our 76 network offices across the country and helping them source really great talent, not only through the resources and corporate resources and corporate partnerships that Jess had mentioned, but also too where we're encouraging them to look closely and locally at those diverse organizations that can help be the pipeline that they need, not only for developing really great talent and encouraging them to join our team, but also too as partners, full partnerships within the community to make an impact in the communities that they serve.
Can I just add one more thing?
Please.
So Northwestern Mutual, before I got here, I knew about this in talent acquisition, is known for internship programs. We hire, 3,000 interns every year. A third of them convert into a full-time role. So what we're doing specifically is that we're looking at diverse student organization in each of these schools that we already recruit from. And we're starting to see more momentum from there too. So I know that you all have connections. We need interns. So please refer us because we need talent. I know the Fairy Godboss audience is the right audience that we're looking for. So we're looking for referrals because it's a fantastic opportunity here for you.
Oh, yes, and you should all definitely check out Northwestern Mutual's profile on Fairy Godboss. We partner with both their field careers and corporate careers, so you can check out all of their open roles on Fairy Godboss. All right, so I have another question for you both. We've talked a lot about how you and your work are supporting diverse communities at Northwestern Mutual, but I'd love to know how you both personally have felt supported in your careers working at Northwestern Mutual. Gladys, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, so okay, how can I say this without getting emotional? So I will say that I think so we talked about my great team, so I don't want to kind of double down on that and kind of bore everybody that's listening. But I can't express enough how a strong team really lends to your being supported. And I think for me, I've got a great sponsor in my leader who's an African American man, and he has been my strongest sponsor and proponent and advocate. And so he has really taken to heart and understand me. I'm a very complex professional, right? I can get really loud and excitable. And him understanding like all my cultural nuances, everything that makes me me, he's amplified the great strengths that I have and encouraged me to be able to understand what my weaknesses are and then work with my team in order to supplement that, right? I think the reason why our team works so well is one, we love each other, but also because each of us supports another because we understand that there's some strengths that one may have that the other may not have and may need to lean on in order to develop. So I think for me, being able to be positioned and chosen to be part of this team for a specific competency, that has been, I think, my greatest blessing, not only joining this team, but also in the impact that I've been able to make. I think without this strong team allowing me to propel as much as I have, it never would have happened without this strong team.
I was going to talk about Ron Adams, Gladys.
We can both talk about him. He's amazing.
So Ron Adams is our leader, and you can look him up on LinkedIn.
Yes. He's fantastic.
He
yes.
is. And one of the things I think that differentiate, and he's the reason why I came to this organization, because I wanted to follow his leadership. But I was in a one-on-one meeting with him, and I came in all frazzled because I had all these things to get done and just really frazzled. And he goes, Jess, how you doing? And I said, well, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. He goes, Jess, how are you doing? I didn't ask you what you were doing. I asked you how you were doing. And my answer was, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. After we got off the one-on-one, I reflected on that moment. He cares. Do you have leaders that care for you? Because that's the organization that you want to be with. And if your leaders don't, come work at Northwestern Mutual, because we have leaders that care. Yeah, can I just add another example? So because I'm relatively new to Northwestern Mutual, I needed to get to know the organization. And also, I'm a remote employee. I'm a Philadelphia resident. And I fly into Northwestern Mutual in a regular case. So one of the ways of me getting to know the organization was, how do I connect with leaders at NM? So there is this person who is fantastic. His name is Jason Handel. Look him up on LinkedIn as well. He's one of our leaders, white male. And I said, Jason, will you be my mentor? I just asked him. He said, absolutely. And he leads our distribution growth ventures, which is like the venture capitalists within NM. So he funds all the unique, interesting projects that we're testing and innovating throughout the country. So Jason's like, absolutely, Jess. So we actually meet on a quarterly basis. He gives me advice. He shares the white male perspective when I'm excitable and emotional. And he calms me down. He's like, Jess, this is what I do. Jess, sometimes instead of going from back to back to back to back meeting, just request for 5-minute grace, collect yourself, and breathe before you enter into your next meeting. And those little techniques that he's taught me has been really serving me well. So ask for a mentor. People are willing to help.
For sure. I love to hear how you're both so supported in your roles and that you have that leadership that lets you be your authentic self and that fully sees your strengths and brings those to the team and to the table. So great to hear. I want to end with just this last question, which is, what excites you most about the future at Northwestern Mutual? Gladys, do you want to take this first?
Sure. So I think what excites me most, to be perfectly honest, is that we haven't stopped. And I need to be able to frame this, because there are companies right now that feel like, everything we did with DEI, oh yeah, that's great. Let's calm that down. Northwestern Mutual, this is daunting work, and I won't candy coat it. It's also, easy to say that this is hard work. We can't possibly do this, so we're just going to pause, or we're going to, defer this to something else or whatever. NM is doubling down because they see diversity, equity, and inclusion as the key to their transformation and their growth. What excites me the most is that they haven't stopped when other companies are considering it. They are doubling down. And I think to be a part of an organization that wants to do that and see that type of change, even if it seems to be moving at a glacial pace, they're not stopping. And I think that's what excites me most about this work and working for Northwestern Mutual at this time.
Love that.
Hey,
Jess?
Katie, can I
Yes.
jump in and answer a question that came in a Q&A that we didn't get a chance to go through? One of the
Oh,
anonymous
please.
attendees said, what advice would you give for someone entering into DEI position at a company, just starting the effort? Specifically, how would you help the stakeholders understand DEI work as a marathon and not a sprint? So I love
Yes,
to
please
go
go
back
ahead.
to my little kid here and pull up my, and these are actually real, it's not props. Right? When you look at market opportunity, consider that this came from an LGBT client. This came from an African American client. This came from a Latino client. There are market opportunities. Does the color of the green change for you? Did the color of the green change for you? So when we have conversations with our leadership, we look at business imperative and leadership competency. So it is about, Gladys talked about this earlier, it's about the head, right? It's either about market opportunities and knowing, it could be about the heart, it could be the passion, right? And like wanting to really be that advocate and activist for what you're passionate about. It's about the hand, about doing, like action, learning, right? Or putting a strategy together and hiring someone like you to lead the DEI work. And most importantly, it's about the harvest. And Gladys demonstrated that so well by giving you all the measurements on how we are succeeding and measuring our impact. So hopefully that helped. It is a marathon and not a sprint. And if you want to have further conversation, link in with me. Happy to set up one-on-one time with you and coach you through how we're doing this.
Thank you, Jess. And we are coming close to time. So I just want to ask you both if there's any final words, parting thoughts you want to leave our audience with before we wrap up here.
I just want to thank you all for the opportunity to share the impact that we're having and what we're doing, right? And understanding that we're not done yet. And certainly we understand that many more companies are probably farther along than we are. And certainly we're drinking the Kool-Aid, but thank you for this opportunity, because I think more people need to hear positive stories about impacts that they're making in their communities and their companies. And this is one success story I'm happy to share.
And I'm just echoing, thank you, Fairy Godboss, for this community that you've created. We really appreciate you like creating this community for us to be able to share, be vulnerable, and be real. So thank you, Fairy Godboss.
Thank you so much, Jess and Gladys, and to our friends at Northwestern Mutual for partnering with us on this event. And thank you to everyone who tuned in. If you'd like to learn more about Northwestern Mutual's incredible culture, you can visit their profile on Fairy Godboss. Like I mentioned, we partner with both Northwestern Mutual field careers and corporate careers, and there are many open roles at both, so be sure to check them out. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you, everyone.